support everyone. It feels like, not just for Austinites, but anyone coming to Austin, that the city is welcoming us, regardless of what we do in our scene. We've talked before on the Fire Show, and we talked a lot about managing attention, managing strategy. Today, I want to talk about something that people here struggle with, content creators, podcasters, entrepreneurs, is having a vision, a why that drives you forward, regardless of when it gets super hard and when things get murky. One of my favorite quotes, and this is going to get super serious, by the way. One of my favorite quotes in the world is by Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, concentration camp survivor, Viktor Frankl. A man who knows his why can endure anyhow. You've chosen a lot of hard things to do in your life. You co-founded a law firm. You fought very hard law cases. You've become a mayor. You're doing a very hard thing. What is your why? Why do you choose these hard things, and what is your why and purpose for doing all these? Light, easy questions in the start, right?
It is. You got real heavy, really serious, really fast. It's like Saturday morning, man. There's burritos in the back of the room. First, thanks for inviting me back onto the podcast. It was a real honor to be there, as you were just really kicking it off. And in a day and an age where Spotify's acquired 3 podcasts, Gimlet and Anchor and Podcast.
Oh, they have awesome. Yeah.
It's a good place to be in.
100%.
What is my why? I at some level, I've always had a need, so it's probably actually kind of selfish to help other people. And I know that sounds kind of trite, but I think that's kind of the nature of how you grow up and the values that you are raised with. So that was something that was really important to my parents. So it was something that was ingrained to us. And then I had kind of the quirk of just falling into a group of friends, and that's what we did. So that's where I'm happiest. That's where I feel the most fulfilled. That's where I feel like there's meaning to what I'm doing. So even starting back as a kid, involved in those kinds of activities, being involved in civil rights law, graduating from law school. That's why I went to law school, to have that tool. I'm one of those people that goes to movies and starts to identify with the hero. And I walk out of movies and wonder, I'm so underperforming relative to whatever it was that I just saw. So that's the drive, I think.
And so that's your why, that's stuck with you all your life. Is there smaller parts of that have changed? Because, and again, I don't know as much as most people in this room or as much as you, but I find that a lot of my purpose for doing one thing changes, right? I came to the U.S. to study college, and I was like, I'm just going to do that. That's my why, and go back home and live there. And now it's maybe I want to be an entrepreneur, a content creator, etc. Does that change throughout your life, or was that like a one thing that just kept you going through these things?
Well, for me, I don't think the vision changed, but certainly the strategies and the implementation change all the time. With that kind of general, I would never have guessed that I would be mayor. I hadn't thought about being mayor up until a month before I started running for mayor. And I went to law school in part because I didn't know what else to do. And law was something that I saw people applying in so many different ways. So I think that the path is constantly changing. I'm not sure that at any point in my life I really had a long-range plan that was really material, that was longer than 5 years. And I think that being open to opportunities as to the path to be able to follow is something that's really exciting about life, and also helps you maximize your opportunities to be able to do whatever it is that you're trying to do.
How did you decide to run for mayor? A month before you actually did?
Well, back then, Austin had changed its governance system. We had gone from an at-large system where everybody elected all of the city council people to a district system where different districts elected people. It was awesome, by the way. It It's kind of interesting, you know, when that happened and there was another election then that was coming up in districts, we knew that at the very least 9 of the 10 council members would be new, because virtually everybody that was on council at that point, they all lived in the same district. So which is one of the reasons why we needed to make that change. So we needed, in that environment, what you know is if you look at other cities and counties that have gone through that transition, government fails for the next 4 to 8 years because it quickly devolves into a ward politic place. You know, you suddenly have a district that's been wanting the same thing for 30 years and they could never get it done, and now they have a representative and they want that representative to get that done, regardless of whether it's in the best interest of the city or not. They've been waiting a long time for that to happen. And now you have 10 people there that have all come there with the same thing. Might not be in the best interest of the city. And then they realize that if 6 of them get together, every one of them can bring back to their district whatever that thing was. That has its place, but it's not a way to govern. So 98% of governments that start that way don't work well. It's the model that you need in long term. In long term, it's what has to happen. So there was a group of us at the time. There was a group of us at the time that said, you know, some of the incumbents are going to run for mayor.
You can put it closer. It might work. Yeah, let's try this.
I'll eat it. All right. So there was a group of us that went out to recruit somebody to run for mayor, so that there would be somebody new in a system where everybody else was going to be new. We went to some people. There's some great people that would have made wonderful mayors in this city, and they all said no. They all had lives and families and other things to do. So we basically locked ourselves in a room, and we said somebody has to stop what they're doing and go do this. And Diane and I drew the short straw. But it's been absolutely.
This might be a game that we play. Check. I can tell my parents.
Really? What? Hold it. Hold it there. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Great.
Anyhow, short straw, wonderful thing. It's been an incredible honor and an amazing experience.
Yeah, let's do this. Okay.
I was watching the guy
This is the
earlier.
best
You know,
photo I've
talking
ever
about
taken if I
mic
do that.
placement. You know.
So I can't even imagine how hard being mayor is, just because of the incoming to you, the things that the weight on your shoulders, the things that you have to be thinking about, the people coming to you. How do you manage that? How do you structure your... Now we're going to do it? Okay. Check. Check. Okay. Well, this is a fun... Goodness. Check. Of course, it had to be done in the interview with the mayor. So, how do you structure your days and your weeks to be able to manage so much responsibility and incoming?
It is good people around you. So it would be impossible for me to handle the incoming stuff. The volume is just so great. We could spend all our time doing nothing but handling constituent stuff. You know, somebody whose bill is wrong or a pothole, and a really specific thing that
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Can we get two more?
Really specific thing that somebody, 90% of the time we can help those people. I can spend all my time doing nothing but that and really help people, but I can't do nothing but that. And every week there are like 20 things that show up on the agenda that on my calendar, on my desk, that wouldn't have shown up there if they weren't difficult things to resolve. I could spend all my time doing nothing but learning and mediating those things, but I can't. What you really want to do is you really want to be proactive, and you want to spend time on affordability in the city long term and mobility in the city long term. You don't want to be reactive, you want to be proactive. Near impossible to do. In fact, impossible to do everything. So it's people. You have to have a really good team. You have to have really good people that are shoulder to shoulder, all working together in order to be able to get that done. And then you have to triage. And you have to make peace, as hard as it is, with the fact that you can't do everything. And you have to figure out what is it that is the best use of my time. What are the, you divide everything into A's, B's, and C's. What are the A's things that if I spend my time here is going to be most transformative for a city? Recognizing you have to do as much of the other stuff as you can, but you have to make peace with the fact you can't do everything, and you have to prioritize, and then you have to be kind of relentless.
How do you do that? How do you make peace with the fact that you can't do everything? Because, and I'm relating to your experience, but also we get told as entrepreneurs, people who create things, oh, you have to do, this is just for you. Make content on every single platform. Do this, have a market strategy, etc. How do you make peace with the idea that you can't do everything, especially when everything seems to matter?
It is really hard, and it's really hard because all these things are real people. So even at an academic level, you can come back and say, this is what I want to spend the time on because this is most transformative, and this I just can't, until this is standing right in front of you and it is a person or a family. It's impossible for me to say, no, that's where the team comes in again, because I'll invariably go back to my team and say, okay, I was I was at an event, I talked to the person, here's his card, this is like really, really important stuff, and my team will take the card away from me and say, okay, this is as far as you go with this, and we'll now deal with this, and I know that sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. It's the people around me that protect me from myself in that regard.
I wish I had more of those. So, so coming back to before you were mayor, right? Having people around us, and many times, we're not politicians, and many times we require help, and sometimes the only way to get help is through inspiring people to come and join our vision for a company, for a place. How do you inspire people? How do you make them connect with your vision? Even because you walk into rooms in which a lot of people completely disagree with you, and they might not align with your vision, but how do you get people to be like, yeah, I'll support you?
Well, my experience is that one, you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't agree with me. In fact, anything that I do, half the people are going to agree with me and half the people aren't. I'm speaking tonight at a citywide iftar, and that event itself, has created a controversy for me. But I think that generally speaking, people want to be around other people that are passionate about what it is that they're doing. And I think that passion is inspiring. And authenticity is incredibly valuable and necessary. So I think that if you're really authentic and you are passionate, there will be people that help you or assist you or join you, even if they don't necessarily agree with the policy or that initial direction, but they're willing to give those people that are passionate and authentic the benefit of the doubt because they're committed.
How do you define being authentic?
I think it's just being really, really honest and being transparent. And it is so much easier for me to do now at my age than it was for me 20 years ago and 30 and 40 years ago. I think back then I was much more concerned about how what I was saying was being received and how what I did was going to, I was, much more, calculating. It is so much easier for me to do how what I was doing was going to help me get to somewhere, especially in terms of saying what I think. Now I'm so old that I don't care the same way that I used to. And I know at the end of the day, so long as I go home and Diane and my 3 girls think that I'm okay, then that's pretty much all that I need. And beyond that, everything else will fall the way that it falls.
Shifting gears slightly, I have 2 mics, by the way, just in case that happens again. Coming back to something you mentioned of you can't do everything, right? I have no idea how many countless things you're working on. But how do you, at the end of the day or a week, say that, I didn't get where I wanted to today or this week, but I'm going to let this go and still feel like I'm doing something even when I haven't made progress? This seems like a personal therapy session now, doesn't it?
Well, again, it is hard to do that, and it's not something that comes to me reflexively to do. And Part of it is having people around me that recognize that weakness in me and help me with that by taking something from me and saying, okay, we have this now, because you need to be over there. But it's a chronic condition, and at some point it becomes part of what it is that you do. And part of it is the positive reinforcement that comes from knowing that you can, in fact, make real transformative change for a large group of people, for a larger community, if you stay focused on the big issues and if you force conversations on what is difficult to talk about, if you get positive reinforcement from that, and you see how doing that kind of focus actually works. So I think it's a combination of feeling really good and getting positive reinforcement on a path that has you focusing on the big things, and then as best you can having people that help you deal with the fact that there is guilt every day associated with what it is that I'm not doing.
Wow. It seems like you've got a great team, by the way.
I have an incredible
amazing.
team. I have an incredible team. It's a small group in the mayor's office, not a lot of people. But it is incredibly diverse and complicated and committed group of people.
Yeah. And shout out to Barbara. Barbara's not here, right?
Barbara's not here.
But she helped us do this. Okay. Maybe, as you mentioned in the start, maybe shifting to some lighter topics on a Saturday morning, right? What is your why? So tell us about something upcoming in Austin for creators, for entrepreneurs, because I know that you go to incubator events, you go speak at entrepreneurship events, creative events, you came here. What are some things you're looking forward in the next 6 to 12 months for the arts, for the creative community that you want to talk about?
The people in the arts and the creative community have challenges that are unique to that industry. And that ecosystem, and then the challenges that are true across the city. So affordability is an issue across the city, not only dealing with artists and creatives in our city, but everybody in our city, which is why a community that voted to pass a $250 million affordable housing bond last November was an incredibly important thing. We're now spending that money, leveraging that money. We're changing the development codes in the city so that we can make sure that the money that the voters voted not only leverages 5-to-1 projects, but now we're relaxing restrictions so that any one of those projects that's committed to and building affordable housing can build 20% more units than would otherwise be required under the code. So we're doing those kinds of structural things. We have a real emphasis on retraining people in our city, creating middle skill opportunities for people, and we need to do that in the creative industries and in the music industries in our city. So we're doing that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I think that everybody should be aware of and everybody should be involved in. But there are political things that we need the community committed to, and there are three of them that are coming up over the next 12 months that I think are critically important. The first one of those is the rewrite of the Land Development Code. The rewrite of the Land Development Code in the city. We worked on that for 6 years and spent $8 million on it, and I pulled down the process last August because the conversation turned into one where you would think that the battle in the city was behind racists living in nice neighborhoods versus developers that were greedy and trying to line their pockets. And the truth is that neither racists nor developers have any control or moment in this debate. This is a city that is having a discussion about land planning issues the way a lot of cities are, and the people that are in the neighborhoods that are trying to hold on to certain preservations and protections are not racist. They're protecting something that is very near and dear to them. And urbanists that are trying to create greater density and greater height that impacts and sometimes conflicts with those kind of neighborhood interests are not developers. They're people that are trying to increase housing supply in the city. So if we stop calling people names and we stop trying to immediately demonize somebody who thinks differently than we think, then maybe we can further the conversation. We re-geared that up. The council over the last 4 weeks has done more work for rewriting the land development code than we accomplished in this city in the last 6 years. We gave direction to the manager, now really specific language on hard questions. A draft's going to come back to us in early fall. It's going to be open to the community, and I hope and have an expectation that we will pass the new land development code before this calendar year is over. But it's going to be rocky in the fall because change is disconcerting. But we need to change if we're going to preserve and protect what is special about this place. Austin does change well to protect what it is that's special about this place. So, separate and apart from the specifics of the industry and the specifics of your lives, we need more and more people in the community demanding that that land development code actually get done this year. That's number one. Number two, we have transportation challenges in this city that are tied to affordability in this city, and we won't solve one of those without solving the other one of these. We need a mass transit, a rapid transit, a public transit system in this city. That will be on the ballot in this city in November of 2020. So at an election, it's going to be the first presidential election that we've had since Trump was first elected. In this city, 75% of the people are going to vote. We haven't had a turnout like that in decades and decades and decades in this city. But on that ballot, probably one of the most important things for our community is going to be, are we ready and committed to actually do what it takes to have a mass transit in our city? You know, a spine on a dedicated pathway that goes all the way from North Lamar at the city line, all the way down through the city, going down Lamar, moving to Guadalupe, maybe even taking cars under Guadalupe, continuing down, crossing the river, going south on Congress Avenue, all the way to the city line. A dedicated pathway system that starts at the airport and comes down Riverside Drive, comes to downtown, crosses the river, goes up Trinity, past the convention center, through UT and up to ACC and Highland Mall. But then dedicated, then priority transit on all the other corridors so that buses that are running are not waiting in line but can get to the front of every line and leave every traffic light earlier than any of the cars can leave so that it's faster and more convenient. We need options in the city. That vote will come up. That's going to be a debate this year. People need to stay engaged in that. And then the third one, specifically for artists, there's going to be the question of whether or not we should expand the convention center in the city, and we need to do that. The reason we need to do that is not only because an expanded convention center brings more tourist dollars to the city that we can spend, not only because it helps support the restaurants and the bars and the clubs in the city that we want to have survive, but because a quirk of this legislature is that they have told the cities, you can't access the hotel tax money to spend on homelessness or the arts or preservation unless you do a convention center expansion. So it becomes the ticket. The reason they did that was to encourage cities to do convention center expansions. Okay, I wouldn't have set up the rules that way, but I live in a state that did. So I'm going to support a convention center expansion because that by itself helps with business, but I'm going to do it primarily because it's going to free up $350 million over the next 10 years that I can plant in the music industry's ecosystem in our city, that I can spend on creative space in my community, on historic preservation, and so that I get a dedicated income stream to deal with the challenge of homelessness in our city, especially around the Arch and what's happening downtown, but all the rest of the community. Those are three key political issues that most people in this city won't get involved in because they don't know about it, they don't understand it, it's kind of happening over there, they don't see how it impacts their lives directly. Those are three things that will have a huge impact on our lives that everybody actually needs to get engaged in.
And in your experience, what have you seen in the arts and creative community? Because you were talking about the macro and how it goes down. What have you seen in the arts and creative community organizing themselves to make a change that really helps them?
I think it has to happen that way. There are some communities you can organize from the top down,
yeah.
But the arts and creative ecosystems is not one of those. Mm-hmm. You know, the arts and creative ecosystem self-selects for people that don't organize well from the top down. I mean, it is by its very nature and personality something that starts with the individual and then grows up. So it is, and that's why I mention it here, because it is so incredibly important. You know, the things that are beautiful and magical about the support for our arts community are primarily things that have started below. Sims and Ham, and the support for musicians and artists with mental health issues and health insurance issues in the community are things that started at the grassroots level and moved up. The work that's happening right now with the music industry coming together to work on venues started from the ground and moved up, and it drags government along with it as it builds that momentum.
Yeah. So one last thing, because people are very curious. If, you know, they want to pitch, because when I told people that I would be interviewing the mayor, I got a lot of emails saying, hey, can you tell him about this or that? I'm like, no, I'll buy a ticket. What is, because, you know, you want ideas coming to you. What is the best way for people to reach out to your office for an idea that might be valuable for them and the city and your team?
Well, I would suggest people reach out to the office to me, because I'll then get it sent to the right person, but not only to me, but also to Carrie O'Connor. Carrie O'Connor is the city's Chief Innovation Officer, which is a job title I'd like to have someday. And I just love that. But there is somebody in the city whose job it is to field ideas and innovative ideas and then act on them or help guide and direct them. But reach out to my office too.
Perfect. And her name was?
Carrie O'Connor.
Carrie O'Connor. So if you want to reach out to the mayor, please do that through her. Mayor Adler, thank you for being in the Fire Show, and thank you for coming to Adler Podcast Festival again.
Thank you for the invitation back.